Contemporary and historical perspectives on maritime interactions in the Indian Ocean region point to both India's centrality to the region and also to its importance to India. To discuss this further, we are in conversation with Dr. Pragya Pandey, one of the editors of the book Roads, Winds and Spices in the Western Indian Ocean and the Memory and Geopolitics of Maritime Heritage, published by Macmillan Education India and ICWA. Ma'am, would you like to say a little bit about the book?
Sure. The significance of extensive maritime activities across the Indian Ocean in nurturing and sustaining many great civilizations in the past is well known. The Indian subcontinent is central to Indian Ocean, which has been integral to India's long and rich maritime traditions. These historical and cultural maritime exchanges in the Indian Ocean region have been reimagined and reinterpreted in different manners over the period of time. Maritime geopolitics is a reality of current situations. The rising salience of Indo-Pacific, along with the geopolitical contestations in the region, has brought major global attention to the Indian Ocean as a key strategic arena. An understanding of historical transnational connectivity, intellectual exchanges, interconnected histories and traditions through maritime heritage, museums, naval history, and linkages between such connections with contemporary geopolitics is therefore very pertinent. The book attempts to reorient the dominant narratives with an interdisciplinary approach to explore and understand various identities, roots, and sites with a focus on the Western Indian Ocean region. By offering perspectives of multidisciplinary group of academics, policymakers, diplomats, archaeologists, museums and heritage experts.
Okay, so that was a great introduction to the book. Let's talk about a few questions, let's address a few questions that I have in mind with respect to the book. Let's start with the beginning. First off, can I request you to share a few thoughts on the uniqueness of the title? You've used 3 words, roads, winds and spices. What exactly is the significance of these words?
So the 3 terms in the title, roads, winds and spices, are the 3 terms which indicate the transnational cultural heritage projects proposed to the UNESCO for World Heritage nomination by China, India and Indonesia respectively. The first one, roads, basically means Silk Road, which was launched by China in 1988. This is basically to discover the links between the eastern and the western part of Indian Ocean.
Okay.
UNESCO has been very supportive of this project. Second one is the winds. Winds refer to the 2014 World Heritage presentation by Ministry of Culture of India. The project was titled Project Mausam, Maritime Roots and Cultural Heritage. It was presented to UNESCO. It's a project about heritage, culture, knowledge, traditions, and the way in which monsoon creates corridor across the Indian Ocean, which connects different parts of the Indian Ocean and helps in transmission of ideas, religious beliefs, traditions, music, architecture, and etc. The third term, spices, it is basically proposed by Republic of Indonesia. This is to recognize Spice Trail as the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So there is lots that is being proposed for the Indian Ocean region, and we need to be aware of such cultural narratives that are being suggested and popularized.
Absolutely. I think from what you've just highlighted, I can see the 3 words, roads, winds and spices, they fit appropriately in the context, and I believe the idea was to be recognized by UNESCO. Right, okay, so that will gain a lot of traction, I think. Okay, so moving on to our next question, that is, the publication's prima objective revolves around the history and geopolitics of the Indian Ocean region. Would you like to touch upon the same for people who haven't been able to touch upon this masterpiece yet? Would you like to elaborate a little?
Significance of the Indian Ocean in nurturing and sustaining many great civilizations in the past is very well known. At present, in the 21st century, the re-emergence of Asia has restored the old flows, and it has redrawn the historical trade links between the Indian and the Pacific Ocean. Therefore, it is very much imperative to explore how geopolitics, maritime connectivity and cultural heritage have been interconnected throughout the history.
Of course.
A historical analysis of the region shows that the great power rivalry in the Indian Ocean region is not something that we are witnessing now. It has been there historically. Only thing is that players have changed from time to time. Much of the current discourse, however, on the Indian Ocean often focuses on analyzing the current geopolitics in the region. However, it is very much crucial that historical, civilizational, and commercial links between across the region also has to be paid attention for a better understanding of present circumstances. These historical and cultural maritime connections have been reimagined, recreated, and reinterpreted in different manners over the period of time. Current conceptualization of an alternative world order are also strongly legitimized by history and legacy of historical interactions in the Indian Ocean region. And therefore, there is definitely a need to reorient the dominant narrative to understand and analyze our interconnected histories, traditions, and intellectual exchanges.
Well, I hope that information is helpful for a lot of prospective readers and scholars who are looking for information in that regard. So, when we're talking about the book, what do you think is the core objective of this symposium? How would you define the core objective?
The core objective of this conference or the symposium was basically to bring together ideas and views of multidisciplinary group of academics, archaeologists, museum and heritage experts, policy makers and diplomats, as well as people who are experts in, from the Navy, who are practitioners in the field. So the idea was to basically make this conference as interdisciplinary as possible. It is necessary, therefore, to explore and understand various narratives, identities, roots, and sites, all of which broadly culminates into the idea of heritage. The conference and this book, this volume, is an attempt to contribute to current debates on transnational connectivity and over history, culture, heritage, interlinkages between memory of such older connections and contemporary maritime geopolitics and connectivity. The objective basically is to bridge the gap between academic analysis, policy and practice, and to highlight the significance of the past and present global maritime interactions, beyond the narrow focus that we often place on trade flows, infrastructure and investment. We also had a very special panel discussion, which was one of the key highlights of this conference, on Project Mausam, Government of India's Project Mausam of 2014. The project basically aims to reconnect and re-establish communications between countries of the Indian Ocean world for an enhanced understanding of cultural values and concerns. During the conference, we also brought in the IORA, the Indian Ocean Rim Association. The representatives from IORA also participated in the conference. It is very significant to highlight because IORA is the major regional multilateral platform in the Indian Ocean region.
So, one of the papers in the book talk about the climatological aspects in determining the navigational wisdom. Do you think climatological aspects play an important role in determining the direction of maritime activities?
Certainly, as you mentioned, climatological aspects do play a very important role in determining the direction of maritime activities. The Indian Ocean is different from other oceans in several aspects. One of the most striking difference is the seasonal monsoons. Climatic conditions are crucial in determining sailing from one point to another. Communities of mariners, pilots and merchants have acquired vast knowledge of sailing, which were used or passed down from one generation to the next. Navigational knowledge of Indian coastal communities were developed based on their interpretation of natural elements like the use of stellar navigation, winds, tides and currents. And these ancient Indian navigational wisdoms were passed orally from one generation to another among the seafaring communities, and these were also widely used. The climatological evidences coupled with history often indicate that weather conditions played a crucial role in fixing the routes. Climatological references using the seasonal winds and currents in the Bay of Bengal, along with other cultural and epigraphical evidences, are often used in determining maritime connections of India with other nations of the Indian Ocean region.
That is really interesting, and I think we've come a long way from the times when the mode of communication for communicating the navigational wisdom was solely oral. And today, I think a lot of technological advances have been in our benefit, and things probably have changed now. Okay, so I'll just go back to what you said in the introduction. There's one statement that you said, and I certainly have got attention on that. Which says maritime geopolitics is the reality of current times. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little on that in present context. Okay.
Certainly, the book certainly highlights that maritime geopolitics is the reality of current times. If you look at the current geopolitical situation in the larger Indo-Pacific region, the Indian Ocean is gaining a lot of significance as a key strategic arena, particularly in the context of Indo-Pacific region, emerging as the principal strategic reference point, with some of the most critical international sea lanes of communication, which carries much of the large amount of international trade. We have the Strait of Hormuz on the western side of the Indian Ocean and the Strait of Malacca on the eastern side. So these two combine together. They are the two most important strategic choke points if we look at from the perspective of volume of oil that transits from these two straits every day. So any sort of disruption in the region can have serious economic and strategic consequences, not just for the regional countries, but for the international economic stability as also. This significance is accompanied by unprecedented geopolitical contestations in the region with the varied interest of regional and extra-regional powers. One of the most consequential factors has been China's asymmetric rise and its increasing assertiveness across the region. We also have witnessed intensifying tension between the US and China in the region. From India's perspective, there is this growing realization in the policy circles about the limitations of our earlier preoccupation with the continental mindset in India's strategic thinking. So now the Indian Ocean occupies a primary position in India's foreign policy and in India's strategic thinking. So there is certainly an equivalence of continental and maritime if we look at India's foreign policy perspective. So certainly the Indian Ocean region is becoming center of global attention, and this present competitive environment is likely to continue for some time at least in future, given the competitive interest of various regional as well as extra-regional players.
Okay, so we can say that it is the geographical location of a particular country which determines and basically links its maritime domain with the cargo, trade, commerce and whatnot. So which is why probably we're talking about India's maritime location and the peninsular region, how it occupies major portion of Indian Ocean. Okay, so I think there's also a mention of this in the book, that the association of the Indian Council of World Affairs with certain institutions, initiatives and programs like Project Mosam and other institutions that you've mentioned, how did that, did it become a significant impetus which in turn helped bring out this project in a good shape, made it a magnum opus kind of thing? So would you like to address a few of these initiatives?
ICWA is the leading institution of the country. We conduct research on foreign policy related issues. For this conference particularly, we had collaborated with the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts. The conference also brought participants and speakers from a number of bodies of the government, including National Monuments Authority of India. We had Ministry of Culture participating. We had Archaeological Survey of India, Indian Council of Cultural Relations, and also Ministry of External Affairs. Besides the Indian, participation of Indian bodies, we also had participation from the Indian Ocean Rim Association, which is the regional organization, a multilateral platform for countries of the Indian Ocean. The Secretary General of Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, she delivered the concluding address for the conference. So these associations have certainly helped in successful and stimulating discussion at the conference, which will now be transmitted to a larger readership through this volume, through this book. Our own expectations, however, were modest. That was basically to strengthen the interface between scholars, policymakers, think tanks, intergovernmental institutions such as IORA and UNESCO. We tried to bring together scholars and the existing scholarship together, and then pack them in a form that makes it accessible to the wider audience.
Yeah.
That was a real challenge. So from our perspective, the idea was to have certain amount of joint research and publication that we thought would be a significant achievement.
Okay, so certainly the book is a remarkable outcome of the collaborative efforts of all these institutions along with the Indian Council of World Affairs, and I'm sure there is a whole ocean of information when one picks this up and reads it, and one can gain from it. So thank you so much for addressing all our queries, and we'll see you next time with your next book in hand for sure. Okay, so this is signing off, Garima Malhotra with Dr. Pragya Pandey, talking on the book Roads, Winds and Spices in the Western Indian Ocean, the Memory and Geopolitics of Maritime Heritage.
Thank you.
Thank you.